What's Gucci, everybody? It's AJ here again, and today I'm going to continue my talk of arrays. Now, something that I guess I didn't show in the video, but I mentioned it, is that an array can be made of any type. So I showed you that you can make an array with type int, but also you can make one with type char. So here I've got a character array of length 5, and I'm just going to fill it up with, I'm sorry, not numbers, but character values. Woo! G, H, R, T. And yes, they all have to be separated by commas. I just forgot to do that. And I have a character array, and I can still remember that I still have to reference them from the indexes 0 through the size -1. So the size is 5, and so the indexes are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is one thing I wanted to show. Another thing I also wanted to point out is that in the notes, you can also, if you initialize the first element of the array, the other elements will essentially be initialized to 0. So if I have an integer array, we'll call that B, and we'll make it 100. If I make this element 1, the first element 1, let me get a printout statement here going, and if I make that 1, it will actually make the first element index 0, 1, and it will initialize all of the other 99 indices to 0 for me. And there's no other way to initialize them to another value. You would just have to declare them or write a function that makes them all like that. So let's see if I print out b of 10. I should get 0. And yeah. So just so you know, even though I'm only declaring one element of this array with size 100, I am initializing the other 99 values, indices, to 0, with the first one being a 1. I'll just print that out to show you guys. Boom. So if I wanted to only initialize the first 3 indices, I could do that. Obviously, this doesn't show that, but if I initialize that, it should be 2, just as we saw in the last tutorial. So what do we know? We know we can have arrays with different types. We know they can have different sizes. But what about if we needed a table that just wasn't rows? As in, an array can be represented here as something that you kind of think of as a huge block of space with different elements in it of a certain type. And I can have 5 here, 3 here, 7 here, 10 here, 8 here, and 9 here. But let's say I wanted an array that just wasn't one-dimensional. It couldn't go, it couldn't become longer. But I wanted something like a table, for instance, that didn't just have rows, but it also had columns that I could put other values in. Where there is such thing as this, called a multi-dimensional array, where I can make basically an array table and use it like that. So let me make an int array called table, and in this array I'm going to make it 4 and 5, and let me show you here. What this is saying is that now, as you can see, I have 2 size values here. The first value indicates the number of rows. And remember, rows is you row your boat left or right. So it's the rows are what goes left or right. It's like what I'm highlighting in is a row. Now, what is a column is what goes up and down. So the 1, 2, like the column right here next to the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, marking the lines, are what columns are. So now I can declare this thing. So what's this? So what is this saying? It says there are 4 rows of 5 elements. Is how I like to read it. There are 4 rows of 5 elements. So there are 20 elements in all. So what I can do here is, let's say I want to initialize my first row. I actually can put another bracket inside the outermost brackets and make that array. And so that's saying the first row is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I can make the second row by again doing another amount of brackets separated by a comma and do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and no one's going to complain about that. And I could do that, and I could keep on going. Let me just make a third one. And here we go. With the magical power of editing, I have 4 rows of 5 elements. So this represents the first row, and then a comma, and then an inner array of the second row, and then a comma, and then the inner array, it goes across the line, down the line for the third row, and then the fifth row. And if I wanted to print out any of these elements, again, it would be indexed as the same way I index this. So again, I can't go above the sizes. So hopefully this will print out the first row and the second column, which would be, let's see, this is the first row, which again will be indexed as 0. So this will be the index 1. This will reference the index of the first row, and this is the index of the 0th row. So I'm in this row, and it's going to print out the second element. This is the 0th element index. This is the first element index, and this is the second element index. And so hopefully if I print this out, if I'm right, I get 8. And I do. Ooh, so there you go. That's one way to declare an array and make it really easy. Also, another way I could declare a two-dimensional array is, we'll call this tables 2, and I'll just make it 2, comma 2, is that you notice how I have all these inner brackets, and you may think you need that for a two-dimensional array, but the fact is you can also initialize it like a normal array. So I can just say 9, 8, 7, 6. And what this will do is, as long as you realize it, 9 and 8 will comprise the first row of 2 rows and 2 columns, and this will complement the second row of the 2 rows and 2 columns. It's just that this initialization makes it more easier and readable, because you can say, oh hey, this is the first row, oh hey, this is the second row, oh hey, this is the third row, and this is the fourth row. But this way works as well. I can initialize it like a regular array. Let me just show you here. I'll print out some values. So let's say I want to print out the first value and the first value. So that should give me 7. And it gave me 6. Oh yeah, sorry, because I misread the array. That was stupid of me. See, it's not a good thing because I make these videos because I learn myself. So again, this 7 refers to is indexed by the first row and the 0th column, and 6 is referenced as the first row and the first column. So it will give me 6, as you see here. So you always got to think about that. Sometimes I forget about the 0 too, and that's why I like to think out loud and learn more. So yes, again, if I only declared 9 and 8 without the comma, it would initialize these to 0. So as you see here, I get a 0, and that's okay too. Also, another thing I want to add is you can also make two-dimensional arrays. So dimensional, I mean, you can make something larger than a two-dimensional array. So let's say I had 3, 3, 3. And isn't this blowing your mind? I have a 3-dimensional array, which will have 2 columns, 2 rows, and I don't know, whatever you want to call the third dimension. I'm not used to it. So 2 dimensions is a table. I don't know what you would use it if you wanted to represent elements somehow in a cube or something on a very insane scale. You may have to use it. I haven't come across it in my programming experience, but I just want you to know you can do that too. You can make some insane thing. I also can make it 5-dimensional. I can make it 4 dimensions. I can make it 6 dimensions, and the compiler will not complain. And there you go. See? Doesn't give me an error, and let me try to run. I guess I can run I'll try to print out dimensional. 0. How many dimensions is this? 5, 0, 0, 0, 0. That's 6. Stupid AJ, tricks are for kids. And I get a 1. Woo! So as you can see, that all compiles well. New initialization for missing W brackets. But I could do some crazy stuff with arrays, so you can make multi-dimensional arrays and refer to them. Or you can just make a 2-dimensional array. You'll probably just need 1 or 2 for most of the cases. And you can declare them the same way as a 1-dimensional array, or you can use the brackets with inside the brackets method to make it more readable, which I guess I'm an advocate for, but feel free to use this. Most people will be able to still read it. It just makes this very easier if you have a huge array and you need to clean up your code so you can at least figure it out. Well, guys, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great